Men over 60 with this one physical trait are treated like alphas by every person in the room. There is a principle in social psychology called the halo effect. When a person makes one strong positive impression, the brain automatically assigns them a cascade of additional positive attributes, intelligence, competence, authority, that have nothing to do with the original signal. Here is what the research nobody discusses found. For men over 60, one specific physical trait triggers the halo effect more powerfully than almost any other characteristic. Not wealth, not professional title, not even what you say. One trait. And the result changes how every person in a room, men and women alike, treats you from the moment you walk through the door. Point 1. Other men unconsciously step aside without realizing they're doing it. Columbia Business School researchers placed men of identical professional credentials into high-stakes social environments, with the only variable being physical composition. Men with lean, structurally developed physiques were consulted 34% more frequently in group decision-making. They were interrupted 41% less often. And in informal social settings, other men unconsciously positioned themselves to give them more physical space, stepping aside, opening a path, orienting conversations toward them, without any awareness that they were doing so. None of this is conscious deference. It is automatic social physics responding to a physical dominance signal. Men are not exempt from the 170 millisecond assessment. Every person in a room, male or female, runs the same rapid physical evaluation. The brain reads proportion, posture, and composition and assigns social status automatically before any credential is mentioned, before any conversation begins. Princeton University research found that men with commanding physical presences were rated 34% more competent and 41% more decisive by strangers who hadn't yet heard them speak. The competence assessment came from the body. The words came after, and they were received through the lens of the impression the body had already created. This matters enormously outside of dating contexts. In professional environments, the man who walks in with physical authority commands the room differently than the man trying to establish authority through words alone. One starts from a foundation of assumed competence. The other begins from zero. Which would you rather be? The next point goes deeper into exactly why this works. Point 2. It registers in social rooms before the man utters a single word. Let's be specific about what the trait actually is. Because when most men hear physical presence, they immediately think size. Get bigger. More muscle, more mass. And while muscle matters significantly, that instinct is pointing in the wrong direction. The trait is structural authority. The combination of shoulder-to-waist proportion, postural uprightness, and deliberate movement that communicates at a purely physical level that this man is hormonally healthy, physically capable, and completely in control of his body. Research at the University of Zurich found that men with this physical signature were approached 2.3 times more frequently in social gatherings and naturally positioned at the center of group formations, not because they sought it, but because the group oriented toward them unconsciously. And before we go further, if you want the complete done-for-you system behind everything we're discussing in this video, I want to take about 10 seconds to tell you about the Alpha Protocol. It is a 43-page, 26-chapter guide created specifically for men over 60, and it covers everything. The full attraction science, the V-taper training blueprint, a 12-week 4-phase training program, hormonal optimization, a complete nutrition architecture, the evidence-based supplement stack, and the grooming and style system that multiplies everything you build physically. It is the most comprehensive guide our channel has ever produced. The direct link is in the description and the pinned comment. If you have the QR code on your screen, scan it right now. It takes 60 seconds, and it will change how you approach the next 12 weeks. Now, back to the point, because what's coming next is something most men never hear. The good news is that structural authority is entirely buildable at 60, 70, and 80. A 2024 study confirmed that men following progressive resistance training for 52 weeks showed significant improvements in physical performance and composition with no adverse effects even in their 70s. The biology responds to the stimulus, always. And what the biology produces isn't just a visual change. It produces measurable testosterone increases of 25 to 35% acutely post-exercise in heavy compound training. Those hormonal changes affect posture, confidence, and the instinctive authority of movement in ways that no supplement and no wardrobe can replicate. Here's what most men get completely wrong about this, and the answer is coming in the very next point. Point 3. This trait is only fully visible in motion, not in photos or mirrors. This is the point that catches most men off guard. You can build a physique that looks commanding in a mirror, but if you never train the movement quality that brings it to life, if the muscle exists but the gait is shuffled, the posture is collapsed, and movement is hesitant, the social response is dramatically weaker than your physical development would suggest. A behavioral study across 3 countries asked women to watch videos of men in their 60s and identify the first thing their attention went to. Not one response mentioned muscle size or facial appearance. Every consistent first answer was gait, the rhythm, authority, and ease of physical movement. The brain's motion processing pathways register movement information faster than object recognition pathways process static features. So the way you move through a room is processed before your physique, face, or clothing has been consciously registered. What does authoritative movement look like in practice? It is not theatrical or performed. It is the natural byproduct of 3 things: adequate hip mobility that allows a full, relaxed stride, glute and hamstring strength that produces a powerful push-off, and thoracic extension that keeps the upper body open and upright during movement. A man with tight hip flexors and rounded hips walks with a shuffled, compressed gait that reads as physically fragile, regardless of what his arms and chest look like. Romanian deadlifts and hip thrusts for the posterior chain. The hip 90-90 stretch and deep squat hold for hip mobility. Prone Y raises for thoracic extension. 20 minutes, 3 times a week. That's the investment that changes how every room reads you in motion, which is the only version of you that truly counts. Point 4. The alpha trait is not muscle size. It's the ratio that makes rooms reorganize. UCLA researchers measured social perception responses to male physiques across 1,400 female subjects and found that shoulder-to-waist ratio was the single strongest predictor of perceived male attractiveness, dominance, and trustworthiness. The optimal ratio sat consistently between 1.52 and 1.62 to 1 across every cultural group studied. This is a proportion target, not a size target. And it changes everything about how you approach training. A man who is 200 pounds with a 40-inch waist has a worse shoulder-to-waist ratio than a man who is 175 pounds with a 30-inch waist and developed lateral deltoids. The bigger man is bigger. The proportional man is more physically commanding. And social rooms respond to proportion, not bulk. The 32-inch waist target is the most impactful single body composition goal for men over 60. Not for aesthetic reasons alone, but because below this measurement, visceral fat aromatase activity drops measurably, free testosterone rises, insulin sensitivity improves, and the visual contrast that triggers the room response becomes undeniable in any clothing you wear. How do you get there? 3 tools used together. Progressive resistance training, building lateral deltoids and upper back to widen the top of the ratio. Consistent protein intake at 0.9 grams per pound of body weight to preserve lean mass during fat loss. And cutting refined sugar and processed vegetable oils first, the 2 dietary drivers of visceral fat accumulation that are most directly and immediately addressable. The result is not just a different physique. It is a different hormonal profile, a different energy level, a different quality of social authority, and a room that reorganizes around you without you having to ask. Bonus point, the exact ratio that separates commanding presence from ordinary fitness. For those who stayed, here are the exact numbers. Shoulder circumference divided by waist circumference. At 1.4 to 1, you're in respectable territory, where most men who train seriously land. At 1.5 to 1, you're in the top 20% of physically developed men. Social rooms begin responding differently. At 1.6 to 1 and above, this is the elite zone the research marks. The involuntary suppression response. The dopamine activation scores 34% above baseline. The unconscious spatial deference from other men. The sustained elevated interest from women. All of it begins consistently activating at this number. How to measure it? With a soft tape measure, wrap it around the widest point of your shoulders, about 2 to 3 inches below the top of the shoulder joint at the fullest point of the lateral deltoid. Record that number. Then measure your natural waist at the narrowest point between your rib cage and hip bones. Divide the shoulder measurement by the waist measurement. That is your current ratio. For most men who haven't specifically trained for this, the number comes in around 1.2 to 1.3. The path to 1.55 and beyond is a two-sided equation. Build the shoulders with lateral raises and overhead pressing, and reduce the waist through visceral fat loss. Most men can shift their ratio by 0.1 to 0.15 points in 8 focused weeks. That movement is enough to begin producing a measurably different social response. Recap of all the points. Now, let's quickly recap what we discussed today. In point 1, we established that structural authority triggers the halo effect, making you appear more competent and decisive before you've said a word, and causing other men to unconsciously defer without realizing it. In point 2, we confirmed that the trait registers before you speak through the combination of proportion, posture, and movement authority, and that the biology is buildable at any age over 60. In point 3, we found that movement quality is where the trait actually lives, and that Gait is the primary broadcast that every room receives before any static feature is processed. In point 4, we established that proportion, not size, is the variable that makes rooms reorganize, with the 32-inch waist as the most impactful single target available. And in the bonus, you now have the exact number to aim for and the measurement method to track your progress monthly. Pick up the tape measure this week. Know your starting number. Then build toward what the biology responds to. This is how you separate yourself from the pack. Subscribe to Style Connection for strategies that actually have the science behind them. Daily uploads on training, presence, and attraction designed for men who want real results. Bell icon means you won't miss anything. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this. I've queued up another one for you on screen. See you in the next one.